Exodus 13. The Lord said to Moses, "Dedicate to me all your oldest children. Each first offering from any Israelite womb belong to me, whether human or animal." Unleavened bread, Moses said to the people, "Remember this day, which is the day that you came out of Egypt, out of the place you were slaves, because the Lord acts with power to bring you out of there. Though leavened bread may be eaten, today it is the month of Abib. You are going to live. The Lord will bring you to the land of the Canaanites and Hittites and Amorites and Hivites and the Jebusite. It is the land of the Lord promised your ancestors to give to you, a land full of milk and honey. You should perform this ritual in this month. You must eat unleavened bread for 7 days. The seventh day is festival to the Lord. Unleavened bread should be eaten for 7 days. No leavened bread and no yeast should be seen among you in your whole country. You should explain to your child on that day, "It's because of what the Lord did for me when I came out of Egypt. It'll be a sign on your hand and a reminder on your forehead, so that you will often discuss the Lord's instruction. For the Lord brought you out of Egypt with great power. So you should follow this regulation at its appointed time every year." Dedication of Israel's oldest offering. When the Lord brings you into the land of the Canaanites and gives it to you as promised to you and your ancestors, you should set aside for the Lord whatever comes out of the womb first. All of the first males born to your animal belong to the Lord. But every first male donkey you should ransom with a sheep. If you don't ransom it, you must break its neck. You should ransom every oldest male among your children. When in the future your child asks you, "What does this mean?" you should answer, "The Lord brought us with great power of Egypt, out of the place we were slaves. When Pharaoh refused to let us go, the Lord killed all the oldest offering in the land of Egypt, from the oldest sons to the oldest male animals. That is why I offered to the Lord as a sacrifice every male that first comes out of the womb, but I ransom my oldest sons. It will be a sign on your hand and the symbol on your forehead that the Lord brought us out of Egypt with a great power." God lead the way. When Pharaoh let the people go, God didn't lead them by way of the land of the Palestine. Even though there was the shorter route, God thought if the people have to fight and face war, they will run back to Egypt. So God led the people by the roundabout way of the Red Sea desert. The Israelites went about the land of Egypt ready for battle. Moses took with him Joseph's bones, just as Joseph had made Israel's son promise when he said to them, "When God takes care of you, you must carry my bones out of here with you." They set out from Scott and compared at Edom on the edge of the desert. The Lord went in front of them during the day in a column of cloud to guide them, and at night in a column of lightning to give them light. This way they could travel during the day and at night. The column of cloud during the day and column of lightning at night never left its place in front of the day of the people. Israel crossing the sea. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Tell the Israelites to turn back and set up camp in front of Pil-Havilah, between Migdol and the sea in front of Baal-Zephon. You should set up camp in front of it by the sea. Pharaoh will think to himself, 'The Israelites are lost and confused in the land. The desert has trapped them. I'll make Pharaoh stubborn, and he will chase them. I will gain honor at the expense of Pharaoh and all his army, and Egyptians will know that I am the Lord." And they did exactly that. When Egypt's king was told that the people had run away, Pharaoh and his officials changed their mind about the people. They said, "What have we done, letting Israel go free from their slavery to us?" So he sent for his chariot and took his army with him. He took 600 elite chariots, all the Egyptian other chariots with captains on all of them. The Lord made Pharaoh, Egypt's king, stubborn, and he chased the Israelites, who were living confidently. The Egyptians, including all the Pharaoh's horse-drawn chariots, his cavalry, and his army, chased them and caught up with them as they were camped by the sea, by Pila in front of Baal-Zephon. As Pharaoh drew closer, the Israelites looked back and saw the Egyptians marching toward them. The Israelites were terrified and cried out to the Lord. They said to Moses, "Weren't there enough grave in Egypt? Then you took us away to die in the desert. What have you done to us by bringing us out of Egypt like this? Didn't we tell you the same thing in Egypt? Leave us alone. Let us work for the Egyptians. It would have been better for us to work for the Egyptians than to die in the desert." But Moses said to the people, "Don't be afraid. Stand your ground and watch the Lord rescue you today. The Egyptian you see today, you'll never ever see again. The Lord will fight for you. You just keep still." Then the Lord said to the Moses, "Why do you cry out to me? Tell the Israelites to get moving. As for you, lift your shepherd's rod. Stretch out your hand over the sea and split it in two so that the Israelites can go into the sea on dry ground. But me, I'll make the Egyptians stubborn so that they will go in after them. I will gain honor at the expense of Pharaoh, all his army, his chariot, and his cavalry. The Egyptian will know that I am the Lord. When I gain honor at the expense of Pharaoh, his chariot, and his cavalry." God's messenger, who had been in front of Israel's camp, moved and went behind them. The column of cloud moved to the front and took its place behind them. It stood between the Egyptians' camp and Israel's camp. The cloud remained there, and when darkness fell, it lifted up the night. They didn't come near each other all night. Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea. The Lord pushed the sea back by a strong east wind or light, turning the sea into dry land. The waters were split in two. The Israelites walked into the sea on dry ground. The waters formed a wall for them on their right hands and on their left. The Egyptians chased them and went into the sea after them, all the Pharaoh's horses, chariots, and cavalry. As morning approached, the Lord looked down on the Egyptian camp from the column of lightning and cloud and drew the Egyptian camp into panic. The Lord jammed their carriage wheels so that they wouldn't turn easily. The Egyptians said, "Let's get away from the Israelites because the Lord is fighting for them against Egypt." Then the Lord said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand over the sea so that the water comes back and covers the Egyptians, their chariots, and their cavalry." So Moses stretched out his hand over the sea. At daybreak, the sea returned to its normal depth. The Egyptians were driving toward it, and the Lord tossed the Egyptian into the sea. The waters returned and covered the chariots and the cavalry. Pharaoh's entire army that had followed them into the sea. Not one of them remained. The Israelites, however, worked on dry ground through the sea. The waters formed a wall for them on their right hand and on their left. The Lord rescued Israel from the Egyptian that day. Israel saw the Egyptian dead on the sea hole. Israel saw the amazing power of the Lord against the Egyptians. The people were in awe of the Lord, and they lived the Lord and its servant Moses. Exodus 15. Moses' victory song. Then Moses and the Israelites sang this song to the Lord. "I will sing to the Lord for an overflowing overflowing victory. Horse and rider he drew into the sea. The Lord is my strength and my power. He has become my salvation. This is my God whom I will praise, the God of my ancestor whom I will acclaim. The Lord is a warrior. The Lord is my name. The Lord is his name. Pharaoh's chariot and his army he hurled into the sea. His elite captains were sunk in the lead sea. The deep sea covered them. They sank into the deep water like a stone. Your strong hand, the Lord, is dominant in power. Your strong hand, Lord, shattered the enemy. With your great surge, you overthrow your opponent. He sent out your hot anger. He burns them up like straw. With the breath of your nostrils and waters swelled up. The flood surged up in a great way. Deep waters formed in the depth of the sea. The enemy said, I will pursue. I will overtake. I will divide the spoils of war. I will be overfilled with them. I will draw my sword. My hand will destroy them. He blew with your wind. The sea covered over them, then sank like lead in the twirling waters. Who is like you among the gods, Lord? Who is like you? Foremost in holiness, worth of highest praise, doing awesome deeds. You raised your strong hand. Earth swallowed them up. With your great royalty, you led the people you rescued. With your power, you guided them to your sanctuary. The people heard. They shook in terror. Horror grabbed hold of Palestina's inhabitants. Then Adam's tribal chefs were terrified. Panic grabbed hold of Moab's rulers. All the Canaan's inhabitants melted in fear. Terror and fear came over them because of your great power. They were as still as a stone until your people, Lord, passed by, until the people you made your own passed by. You brought them in and planted them on your own mountain, the place, Lord, that you made your home, the sanctuary, Lord, that you had created. The Lord will rule forever and always. When Pharaoh's horses, carriage, and cavalry went into the sea, the Lord brought back the waters of the sea over them. But the Israelites walked through the sea on dry ground. Miriam's victory song. Then the prophet Miriam, Aaron's sister, took a tambourine in her hand. All the women followed her, playing tambourines and dancing. Miriam sang the refrain back to them. Sing the Lord for an overflowing victory. Horse and rider he drew into the sea, turning bitter water sweet. Then Moses had Israel leave the Red Sea and go out into the Shur desert. They traveled for 3 days in the desert and found the water. When they came to Marah, they couldn't drink Marah's water because it was bitter. That's why it was called Marah. The people complained against Moses. What will we drink? Moses cried out to the Lord, and the Lord pointed out a tree to him. He threw it into the water, and the water became sweet. The Lord made a regulation and ruling there, and there he tested them. The Lord said, if you are careful to obey the Lord your God, do what God thinks is right, pay attention to his commandment, and keep all of his regulations, then I won't bring on you any of the disease that I brought on the Egyptians. I am the Lord who heals you. Then they came to Elim, where there were 12 springs of water and 70 palm trees. They camped there by the water.